If you're questioning everything you've been taught about Islam, you're in the right video. For 30 days, I did something most Muslims won't do. I followed only the Quran. No Hadith. No interpretation. No filters. What I discovered will change how you understand Islam completely. And I'm not going to waste your time. Here's exactly what happened. On day 1, I realized something immediately. When you remove Hadith, you have to ask yourself a terrifying question. How much of what I practice is actually from the Quran, and how much am I doing because that's what I've been taught? I opened the Quran and started looking for the most basic Islamic practice. Prayer, the 5 daily prayers. Everyone does them. Everyone believes in them. So I searched for where exactly the Quran specifies 5 prayers at 5 specific times. I looked for the times. I looked for the number, and what I found shocked me. I was confused. If the foundation of my entire religious practice wasn't clearly in the Quran, what else wasn't? By day 3, I started investigating other pillars. Zakat, how much exactly? The Quran says give from your wealth. But does it specify 2.5%? I searched. The Quran doesn't give that percentage. That comes from Hadith. The Quran mentions pilgrimage, but the specific rituals, the exact steps, where do they come from? Hadith. The concept of 5 pillars itself, that's not in the Quran. That's a framework we've built on top of it. Here's what was happening. I was realizing that almost everything I considered Islamic law was built on a 2-story structure. The ground floor is the Quran. The second floor, which I lived on most of the time, is Hadith and scholarly interpretation. And here's the uncomfortable part. I'd been treating the second floor like it was equally divine, but it's not. One is God's direct word. The other is human interpretation of God's word. By the end of the first week, I was asking myself something crucial. If the Quran is complete, as it claims to be, why do we need Hadith to understand it? The Quran says about itself, there is no authority except Allah, and that this is a complete book. Complete. Not mostly complete. Complete. So I asked, if it's complete, can I live by it completely? Or do I actually need external sources to make it practical? Most people won't ask this question because they've never had to. They've inherited a system where both sources are used, so the question never comes up. But once you remove one source, the question becomes impossible to ignore. Around day 10, I started seeing a pattern. The Quran is incredibly clear on principles. Don't cheat. Don't lie. Be just. Be merciful. Help the poor. Honor your parents. These aren't vague. They're explicit principles, but the implementation, the specific rituals, that's a Hadith. And we've been taught to treat Hadith as equally divine as the Quran. That's the fundamental problem. So here's what I realized. Maybe the Quran is intentionally general because it's meant to be timeless. Maybe the specifics were meant to be lived out by each generation based on their context. Maybe the framework is in the Quran, but the application is yours to figure out. But that's terrifying for people, because it means you can't just follow rules blindly. You have to think. You have to understand. You have to take responsibility. On day 15, something happened. I was looking at a Quranic principle, and it directly contradicted what I'd been taught through Hadith. Not slightly contradicted, directly contradicted it. I could spend this entire video listing which ones. But that's not the point. The point is, once you start comparing the Quran directly to Hadith-based interpretations, you realize how many contradictions exist. And you have to choose which source you actually follow. So I had to choose. Follow the Quran, or follow what I'd been taught. I couldn't do both. That's when it hit me. Most people never reach this point because they never question the foundation. They accept both sources as equally valid, so they never have to choose. But when you commit to one source only, you eventually reach a moment where you must decide, which one are you actually following? This is where the logic became unavoidable. I kept finding contradictions. And every time I did, I had to make a choice. Trust the Quran or trust the Hadith-based interpretation. I couldn't do both, so I asked myself, which source is actually reliable? Which one can I build my understanding on? And the only logical answer was the one that claims to be complete and unchanged, the Quran itself. Once I committed to that, something shifted internally. I stopped trying to reconcile conflicting sources. I stopped trying to make everything fit into a predetermined system. And here's what I discovered. The Quran is simpler than I thought. Not simple in a lazy way, simple in a profound way. The principles are clear. The application is yours to determine based on your circumstances and your conscience. On Salah, the Quran says establish Salah. The word appears dozens of times in different contexts, sometimes about standing and worship, sometimes about maintaining connection, sometimes about supporting someone. So I studied every instance and what establish actually means: to put in place, to create order, to build something. This isn't whim. This is direct engagement with the text. I'm accountable for my interpretation because I can't hide behind the scholars say so. I have to answer to the text directly. That's the difference. On wealth, the Quran says give from your wealth to those in need. I give. How much, when, to whom? The principle guides me. My conscience guides me. Do you see what happened? I went from following rules to following principles. That's completely different. Rules tell you what to do. Principles teach you how to think. And the peace that came from that shift was unexpected. I was constantly worried about whether I was doing something correctly, according to some scholar's interpretation. I was engaging directly with the text and taking responsibility for my choices. By the fourth week, something remarkable happened. I started seeing the Quran with new eyes. Not because it had changed, because I had stopped filtering it through layers of interpretation. I read it. I understood it. I applied it. Simple. Did I make mistakes? Yes. Did I interpret something incorrectly? Probably. But here's the key. I was accountable. My mistakes were my own. I couldn't hide behind, this is what the scholars say. I had to own my understanding. And that accountability changed how I engaged with the text. I read more carefully. I thought more deeply. I wasn't just memorizing interpretations. I was wrestling with meaning. The clarity that came wasn't about having all the answers. It was about knowing that the answers I needed were in the text, and I was responsible for finding them. On day 30, I had learned 4 important things. 3 of them I expected. But the 4th one? It changed everything about how I see Islam. First, the Quran is self-sufficient for guidance. It may not answer every micro-question about ritual format, but it provides the framework for every major life decision and principle. Second, the more I removed external noise, the clearer the Quranic message became. It's not obscure. It's been obscured by layers of interpretation, by contradictory hadith, by scholarly disputes that have nothing to do with understanding the text itself. Third, following only the Quran doesn't make you arrogant, rebellious, lazy, or just following whims and desires as I'd been warned. In fact, quite the opposite. It makes you humble, because you realize how much you don't know. You realize how much more you have to think and work at it. You realize you can't just take the easy road blindly following a set template anymore. Fourth, most people assume that removing hadith means removing structure or becoming chaotic. But the opposite happened. The structure became clearer because it came directly from the source, not filtered through multiple hands and centuries of debate. And yes, most of us don't speak Arabic. We rely on translations. But here's the thing. Even in translation, the Quran is clear on its principles. You don't need Arabic to understand justice, mercy, honesty, or accountability. You don't need Arabic to read a verse about charity or family or truth-telling. What you do need is to read it directly, without someone else's interpretation already built into how you're reading it. That changes everything. That's the difference. The Quran doesn't need Hadith to be understood. It needs readers willing to engage with it directly. The question isn't whether you believe this. The question is, what would you discover if you actually tried it? My journey took over 3 years, not 30 days. But if I had to distill the key discoveries into 30 days, here's what would shift your understanding. Only the Quran. No filters. No interpretation. No one else's framework. I guarantee you'll find something that changes how you understand Islam. The only question is whether you're willing to look.
If you found this video informative, subscribe for more weekly videos like this. Thank you for watching.